Hey there folks, welcome to the Caledonia Gathering. My name is Corey and we're so glad that you're here. You know, it's our mission to tell people about the life and the love of Jesus and to inspire you to learn to live and love like Him. And if that's something you're interested in, you haven't done so already, I want to encourage you to go ahead and hit the subscribe button down below. Now, if you've got kids and you're wondering if there's anything for your kids and it's your first time here, then you got to know there's a special experience just for your children. The link is in the description down below. Johanna, our family ministries director, puts that together with a group of volunteers, and so you can click that link to have an experience just for your kids. Now, today we're going to continue our series that we've been talking about called Beyond Christian, answering the question, well, what is it that you want to be known for? And last week we talked about caring for the poor. This week we're going to talk about racial reconciliation. Next week we're going to talk about sanctity of life, and then we're going to end by talking about biblical sexuality, and then we'll wrap the whole thing up. But for today, before we jump into this content together, I want to invite you to sort of raise your voice, to get your heart and your mind prepared to hear from God, and let's worship together. Let's sing.
Let our praise be your welcome. Let our song be a sign. We are here for you. We are here for you. Let your breath come from heaven. Fill our hearts with your light. We are here for you. We are here for you. To you our hearts are open. Nothing here is hidden. You are our one desire. You alone are holy. Only you are worthy, God. Let your fire fall down. Let our shout be your anthem, your renown. Let it fill the skies. We are here for you. We are here for you. Let your word move in power. Let what's said, oh, let it come to light. We are here for you. We are here for you. To you our hearts are open. Nothing here is hidden. You are our one desire. Alone are holy, only you are worthy, God. Let your fire fall down. You, our hearts are open, nothing here is hidden. You are our one desire. You alone are holy, only you are worthy, God. Let your fire fall down. Let it fall down.
In the crushing, in the pressing, you are making new wine. In the soil I now surrender, you are breaking new ground. So I yield to you and to your careful hand. When I trust you, I don't need to understand. Make me your vessel, make me an offering, make me whatever you want me to be. I came here with nothing but all you have given me. Jesus, make new wine out of me. In the crushing, in the pressing, you are making new wine. In the soil I now surrender, you are breaking new ground. You are breaking new ground. So I yield to you and to your careful hand. When I trust you, I don't need to understand. Make me your vessel, make me an offering, make me whatever you want me to be. I came here with nothing but all you have given me. Jesus, bring new wine out of me. Jesus, bring new wine out of me. Jesus, bring new wine out of me. Where there is new wine, there is new power, there is new freedom. Kingdom is here. I lay down my old flames to carry your new fire today. Where there is new wine, there is new power, and there is new freedom, and the kingdom is here. I lay down my old flames to carry your new fire today. Make me your vessel, make me an offering, make me whatever you want me to be. I came here with nothing but all you have given me. Jesus, bring new wine out of me. Jesus, bring new wine out of me.
Well, friends, welcome back to part 3 of our series called Beyond Christian, which is a series in which we're being invited to take a step away from whatever this label means to you, and a step towards something that I hope is far more interesting. You see, this label means a lot of different things to a lot of different people, but we've said so far in this series that people are far more interesting than the labels that we often give them once you get to know them. And so the question we're asking is, what is it that you want to be known for? What do you want to be known for? Now, if you're a Jesus follower, we've already discovered this prescription of what it is that we should be known for. And again, if you're not a Jesus follower, then you can kind of feel free to take or leave this as you like. I have no authority. I do not assume any authority to tell you what to think or how to live your life. But if you are a Jesus follower, then these things that we're talking about, they're not really optional. We're called to do justice, love mercy, and walk humbly. Now, as a quick reminder, just to fill you in, to do justice is to treat people like they're your people, even when they're not your people, regardless of race or religion or socioeconomic status. In other words, if you wouldn't treat your wife that way, don't treat a poor widow that way. If you wouldn't treat your father that way, don't treat a foreigner that way. That's the baseline mode of operation for a Jesus follower, to treat people as though they were our people, especially if they're not our people. Now, to love mercy is all about going above and beyond that baseline. It's about finding those who are being oppressed, who have needs, and seeking to meet their needs, providing relief to the orphan, the poor, and the widow. And lastly, we're called to do these things humbly, meaning we don't do them with an air of self-righteous pride, but we do them humbly because that's how Jesus treated us. Jesus treated us like we were his own people, and he showed us mercy, and he did it all humbly. And now he's inviting us, his followers, to do likewise. And so what we're doing in this series is we're taking that framework of justice, mercy, and humility, and we're applying it to 4 areas of life that really Jesus followers are called to be famous. And last week we talked about the first of those 4 areas, caring for the poor. And this week we're going to talk about the second area. But before we do, I've got to tell you, I got a text this week that put a huge smile on my face. And this is what it said. 2 convicting messages, 2 weeks in a row. How rude. Loved it. Thanks for doing what you do. And to that person and to all of you who share those feelings of conviction, please know that I'm with you on this. I'm not sitting on my couch at home thinking up ways to try to make you feel guilty. I truly believe that these are the things that we're called to. And when I preach these messages, I preach them just as much to myself. I have also found the last 2 weeks really convicting. And that being said, before we continue today, I want to give you a warning. It's entirely possible that in today's message, some of you are going to feel as though I go too far. Some of you are going to feel like I've said too much, or that Corey, you've crossed the line here. Some of you are going to feel like I didn't go far enough. I didn't say nearly as much as I could say or should say. And that's because today's message is a contentious one. It's fresh, and it raises a whole lot of different feelings. And because of that, I'm going to do my best to bear my soul and my heart with you. I want to show you my failures and my shortcomings. And I'm going to ask that you would graciously walk with me on this. And as you do, that you would also take a really good look at your own heart and your own mind and your own life as we discover the second area where Jesus followers are invited to be famous. And that area is racial reconciliation. You see, for the longest time, I believed that I wasn't racist. I thought, you know what, I'm not racist. And I've got a whole lot of reasons for why I thought that was true. I mean, I've never thought that people of color should use a different bathroom or live in different neighborhoods or eat at different restaurants or drink from different water fountains. I mean, racism was a thing of the past. And on top of that, it wasn't just a thing of the past, it was someone else's past. As a Canadian, I and none of my ancestors have ever owned another human being and been comfortable with the idea of doing it simply because of the color of their skin. So it's not just a thing of the past in my mind, but it's somebody else's past. I mean, I've never refused somebody a job because of the color of their skin. I've never denied someone a raise or paid them less on purpose because they were a different color. I've never refused someone a mortgage because of their complexion or refused them entrance to university or to school. And honestly, the thought of doing those things seems morally wrong to me. So clearly I thought, I'm not racist. And that line of thinking has produced some periods of frustrations over the last couple of years, and especially over the last couple of months. Can I just be honest with you? Like, I'm a little ashamed to admit it, but I've wondered, why should I bear responsibility? Why should I feel guilty about a white police officer who put his knee on the throat of a black man until he suffocated and died? Why should I feel guilty about those things? Why should I feel guilty? Why? And in fact, my heart has actually resisted any feelings of responsibility. I mean, I got to admit to you, at times I felt angry and annoyed that anyone would suggest that I should be responsible for what some other white man has done. I felt feelings of anger and confusion over how I could possibly be held responsible for any of the atrocities that were committed, that have taken place over the last 6 months and beyond. I mean, why should I feel guilty? Why should I feel yelled at or punished? Now, it's entirely possible that I'm alone in this, and I get that. But my guess is that maybe some of you have had some sense of what I'm expressing here. And my assumption is that these problems, that they mostly lie with the people who are doing the yelling and the protesting and the guilt-giving. But unfortunately, that's not the case. And the reason that I've felt this way is because I've bought into and believed what I would call a false gospel. I'd call my false gospel the gospel of individualism. Gospel, as you may know, simply means good news or good story. And the good story of individualism says, I am responsible for my choices and my choices are responsible for me. And the same is true for you. You are responsible for your choices and your choices are responsible for you. Now let me explain that. The first part's kind of obvious, and in part it's true. I'm responsible for my choices. I'm responsible for the choices I make and how to live my life daily, how to treat people, how to behave, how to work, how to be a human being. And the results of those choices, they're on me. And the same is true for everybody else. Everyone's responsible for the choices they make. And we kind of all agree that that's true. But the second part of the phrase is also true, but only in part. My choices are responsible for me. In other words, the person that I have become is based on the sum of the decisions that I've made up until this point. The choice that I made to go to university, or the choice to take courses in religion and history, the choice to go to seminary, the choice to move to the United States. I am who I am today because of the choices that I have made or not made. That's the gospel of individualism. And when you believe this gospel, you can wipe your hands clean of any racist guilt or responsibility, so long as you don't overtly think or behave in racist ways like I was talking about before. You didn't make those choices, therefore you shouldn't be held responsible. The problem is the gospel of individualism isn't true. While it's true that you and I are responsible for our choices, those choices aren't entirely responsible for us. In fact, there is a whole host of things that have nothing to do with your choices that actually make you who you are. And as I was preparing for this message this week, this hit me like a ton of bricks, both with an example from Scripture and an example from my own life. So let me start with the one from my own life first. 2 weeks ago, I got a small package in the mail from my mom. She sent some clothes for Levi, and she sent me this book that she found from my elementary school days. I was in the 6th grade, apparently, when I put this little book together for a class project. I was 12 years old. And so as I flipped through that old book and looked at the old photos that were cut out and pasted onto the paper, I was flooded with all of these memories. But as I read the book, my little typed up descriptions, I started listening to my 12-year-old description of who I was, what I thought, and what I valued. And I couldn't help but hear my parents' voice. Even though I wrote those little pieces as a 12-year-old, they were chock full of the morals and the values and even the faith of my parents, my family, the education system, the church that I went to when I was growing up. You see, I'm not the sum of my choices in life, and neither are you. I've been shaped and formed by a family to value and speak and morally function in the world and see the world in a particular way. I'm the product not of my particular choices, but I'm the product of my church, my family, and my educational system. It didn't just shape the way I see the world, it shaped my world. The idea that I'm responsible for my choices and my choices are responsible for me doesn't even come close to telling the whole story. The gospel of individualism is a lie. I think there's a sense in which we all already knew this, and yet, if you're like me, there's this desire within yourself to avoid or absolve any sense of group-based guilt now based on what somebody else has done. I mean, why should I be held responsible for what they did? And although it's popular for us to have this worldview here in America, this isn't even close to the worldview of Scripture. So let's go to that second example of Scripture. We're going to take a look at Joshua 7. Now, if you aren't familiar, Joshua, you should know, took over leading the people of Israel from Moses, and Joshua is the one who actually led them into the Promised Land. And this story that we're going to read is kind of a peculiar one, and it helps understanding the worldview of Scripture. Now, as the Israelites entered the Promised Land, they fought the Battle of Jericho, they walked around the city, boom, the walls came down, and as they entered through the city, God told them, don't take any of the spoils of the battle. Don't take any of the fancy gold and silver and the clothes and all the rest. Don't take the plunder. And they called the plunder devoted things. They weren't allowed to keep them. But here's what happened. Joshua chapter 7, verse 1. The Israelites were unfaithful in regard to the plunder, the devoted things. Achan, son of Carmi, the son of Zimri, the son of Zerah of the tribe of Judah, he took some of them. So the Lord's anger burned against Israel. Now Joshua sent men from Jericho to Ai, which is near Beth-aven to the east of Bethel, and told them to go up and spy out the region. So the men went up and they spied out Ai. And when they returned to Joshua, they said, hey, not all the army is going to have to go up against Ai. Send 2,000 or 3,000 men to take it, and don't weary the whole army, for only a few people live there. So about 3,000 went up. But they were routed by the men of Ai, who killed about 36 of them, and then they chased the Israelites from the city gate as far as the stone quarries and struck them down on the slopes. And when at this, the hearts of the people of Israel, they melted in fear and they became like water. And then Joshua tore his clothes and fell face down to the ground before the ark of the Lord, remaining there till evening. And the elders of Israel, they did the same, and they sprinkled dust on their heads. And Joshua said, alas, sovereign Lord, why did you ever bring this people across the Jordan to deliver us into the hands of our enemies, the Amorites, to destroy us? If only we had been content to stay on the other side of the Jordan. Pardon your servant, Lord. What can I say? Now that Israel has been routed by its enemies. I mean, the Canaanites, the other people of the country, they're going to hear about this and they're going to surround us and wipe us out. They're going to wipe out our name from the earth. What then will you do for your own great name? And the Lord said to Joshua, stand up. What are you doing on your face? Israel has sinned. They have violated my covenant which I commanded them to keep. They have taken some of the devoted things. They have stolen. They have lied. They have put them with their own possessions. That is why the Israelites cannot stand against their enemies. They turn their backs and run because they have been liable to destruction. I will not be with you anymore unless you destroy whatever among you is devoted to destruction. Go, consecrate the people. Tell them, consecrate yourselves in preparation for tomorrow, for this is what the Lord, the God of Israel, says. There are devoted things among you, Israel, but you took plunder. You cannot stand against your enemies until you remove them. And so in the morning, present yourselves tribe by tribe. The tribe the Lord chooses shall come forward by clan, and the clan the Lord chooses shall come forward family by family, and the family the Lord chooses shall come forward man by man. And whoever is caught with the devoted things will be destroyed by fire, along with all that belongs to him, because he's violated the covenant of the Lord and has done an outrageous thing in Israel. And so, early the next morning, Joshua had Israel come forward by tribes, just like God said, forward by tribes. And the tribe that was chosen was Judah. Judah was chosen. And the clans of Judah came forward, and the Zerahites were chosen. And he had the clan of the Zerahites come forward by family, and the family of Zimri was chosen. And Joshua had his family come forward man by man, and Achan, son of Carmi, the son of Zimri, the son of Zerah, the tribe of Judah, was chosen. And then Joshua said to Achan, my son, give glory to the Lord, the God of Israel, and honor him. Tell me, what have you done? Do not hide it from me. I wonder how much Achan squirmed. And he replied, it's true. It's true, I've sinned against the Lord, the God of Israel. This is what I've done. When I saw the plunder, a beautiful robe from Babylonia, 200 shekels of silver, and a bar of gold weighing 50 shekels, I wanted it. I coveted them. And so I took them. They are hidden in the ground inside my tent, with the silver underneath. And so Joshua sent messengers, and they ran to the tent, and there it was, hidden in his tent, with the silver underneath. And they took the things from the tent, and they brought them to Joshua and all the Israelites, and they spread them out before the Lord. And then Joshua, together with all Israel, took Achan, son of Zerah, the silver, the robe, the gold bar, his sons and daughters, his cattle, donkeys, and sheep, his tent, all that he had, to the valley of Acre. And Joshua said, "Why have you brought this trouble on us? The Lord will bring trouble on you today." And then all Israel stoned him. And after they had stoned the rest, they burned them. And over Achan they heaped up a large pile of rocks, which remains to this day. Then the Lord turned from his fierce anger. And therefore that place has been called the Valley of Acre ever since. Now, let me break down the story for you just real quick, because this story is so offensive to our senses. Achan violates this command of God. Don't take the plunder. He takes the plunder. And then, because of his sin, the nation goes out to battle and they get punished. They get decimated, destroyed. And then, once it's discovered that Achan's the one who took the stuff, his family gets punished along with him and put to death. I mean, this is so barbaric, isn't it? It's kind of unpalatable. This is one of those stories that we don't really like to read. It's hard for us, especially those of us who buy into the gospel of individualism. I mean, who buy into to believe that. And it's hard to accept it. I mean, why should a whole nation, let's start with that, why should a whole nation, a whole culture, a whole group of people be punished for the sins of one man? Why should they all bear the weight of the responsibility? And then, on top of that, why should his children, his family, be punished as though they're guilty for his actions too? I mean, it seems completely unfair to us, right? But here's why. You see, the worldview of Scripture understands the nature of community far more than our worldview. What Scripture understands is that Achan's not just responsible for his choices, and his choices are responsible for him. Achan is the product of a cultural environment. In other words, what a communal worldview understands is that Achan is the product of an Israelite culture, practice, and habits that often assumed it's perfectly acceptable to ignore the commands of God. Achan wasn't the first, and he won't be the last of the people of God to ignore his commands. Israel produced all kinds of Achans during their lifetime. And if Achan thought that it was perfectly fine to live that corrupt life, that meant nobody had stepped in to put a stop to it. And that means also that he was for sure going to pass that way of living on to his children, raising them in disobedience. You see, Scripture doesn't buy into this idea that I'm responsible for my choices and my choices are responsible for me. But it gets that things are far more interconnected than that. The culture, the nation was held responsible for producing the Achans among them. And Achan's family was held responsible for allowing him to become who he did as well. So really, they all bear his guilt. They all bear responsibility. Now, what does this have to do with racial reconciliation? Just stay with me on this. 73% of white families living in America today live in owner-occupied homes, meaning they don't rent, but they actually are paying the mortgage or they own the home, while only 42% of black families live in owner-occupied homes. Black Americans are 3.7 times more likely to die of COVID-19 than white Americans. Based on the numbers, that means that if black Americans died of COVID at the same rate as white Americans, around 18,000 black Americans would still be alive. In 2016, black college graduates aged 25 to 34 earned 15% less and had an unemployment rate 2/3 higher than the typical college grad that was at the same age and stage. As of January of this year, the unemployment rate amongst African Americans was a little over double that of white Americans. And you know what? My guess is that if you're like me, you probably think to yourself, yeah, but Corey, I've never denied a person of color a mortgage, or intentionally offered them less salary, or denied a person of color a job or health care. And the gospel of individualism says those stats might be real. They may be a reality, but they're not a result of my day-to-day choices. You see, I get it. I'm back to where I started with the gospel of individualism. I didn't make those choices, so why should I feel guilty and be held responsible? However, remember, the gospel of individualism is a lie. While I've never done those things personally, I do live in and participate in, and to be honest with you, have done very little to alter the culture and society that does produce those stats and those realities. There's a phrase in business when talking about outcomes like profits and losses that says, you are perfectly fine-tuned to get the results you're getting. Your organization is. In other words, the way you operate in your current reality is fine-tuned to give you the outcomes you're seeing. Now, if you apply that to our current cultural moment, that means that our current mode of operation as a society here in the States is producing these results, like racial gaps in home ownership, salaries, and college degrees. We are fine-tuned to get the result that we're getting. And you know what else we say in business? The definition of insanity is to change nothing and expect something to change. Insanity is to do the same things over and over and over again and expect a different result. You can't expect things to change without changing things. So, have I ever put my knee on the throat of a black man until he passed out and died? No. But do I live in a culture where this sort of thing has happened, does happen, and other things like it continue to happen disproportionately to people of color? Yeah. And have I done anything to make a change? No. Then I bear some responsibility. I mean, I may or may not be Achan, but I'm definitely a part of his nation and his family. I continue to participate in a culture that continues to produce the Achans of the world, which is bleak. But there is some good news here. You see, the gospel of individualism only has the power to condemn you. You are the result of your own choices. And if your choices condemn you, then you are also the only thing that can save you. You're responsible for your own salvation, which is impossible. But the gospel of Jesus is so much better than that. If it's possible for the choices of another person to condemn you, then it's also possible for the choices of another person to save you. And that's really the heart of the Christian message. The gospel of Jesus says that, yeah, while your own sin, as well as the society in which you participate, is enough to condemn you, the acts of one man were enough to reconcile you to God. The gospel of Jesus says that it's true. I participate in a society that regularly decimates the lives of all kinds of people, locally close by and globally around the world. By my action and my inaction, I perpetuate injustice every single day. And the result of that sin should be my death. It's clearly death. I mean, it's death in my relationship with others. And ultimately, it creates this separation between me and God. And the hard truth of it is that there's nothing I can do to fix that problem. I can't fix societal evil. I can't fully fix my own sin problem. And neither can you. I mean, no amount of pursuing justice or equality, no amount of advocating and social media posting or the rest is going to fix your problem. But the good news of the gospel is that Jesus put on flesh to bridge that gap between us and God for us. And then he died the death that all my racist sin deserved. God counted Jesus' death as my own. So now when God the Father looks at me, he doesn't see my racist sinfulness, he sees his perfect Son. Jesus has reconciled me back to God. And now the resurrected Jesus is inviting me, inviting you, his forgiven followers, to live a different kind of life. A life that seeks reconciliation based on the restored relationship we have with God. Not out of some moral superiority or virtue signaling, but out of gratitude for what Jesus has done for us. To learn to live and love like him, and hopefully to win others over to the way of Jesus. You see, if God sought us out to restore the relationship, then Jesus is inviting us to do the same with others, especially those of a different skin color. I mean, the Old Testament's filled with visions of a future where all people gather together to worship God. And the New Testament saw the beginnings of the fulfillment of that vision, and they regularly talked about the reconciliation of races. Jews Gentiles of all backgrounds being reconciled to one another because of Jesus. Racial reconciliation based on the gospel of Jesus is a major theme throughout Scripture. And so if you're a follower of Jesus, this is something you're invited to be famous for. And its foundation is simple. It's because you know that Jesus thought you were worth dying for, that you go ahead and treat all other people as though the same is true about them. They're worth dying for. You treat them that way because they are. Now, what might that look like exactly? Well, it would look like doing justice when it comes to racial reconciliation. In other words, it means treating people as though they were your own people, even if they're, and especially when they're not, your own people. I'm guessing for you and me, it means a lot of listening and learning. I mean, if it was your brother or sister who made statistically lower income, had a higher mortality rate, and struggled to get a job just because of the color of their skin, how might you treat them? Wouldn't you be curious about their experience? Wouldn't you want to hear what their life is like, to know their story? I mean, if it was your family member, wouldn't you be more likely to lean in and listen? Listen to the stories and experiences, the worldview of someone different than you? My guess is that as we do this together, we're going to figure out that these issues of racial inequality are kind of embedded and difficult and complex, a lot more difficult and complex than we simplify them to be. But perhaps we can make a start by making listening our baseline. And then, as we're called to love mercy, the next question is, well, what does it look like to go above and beyond the baseline for those who are oppressed? Which might mean learning about our cultural machine that we have and why it's currently producing the outcomes that we're getting. I mean, what laws, what policies, what practices are in place that maybe at face value don't seem to be a problem, but actually need to change in order to create more racial equity. I heard a story this past week, is a good example of this, about a guy who owns a car dealership, and he's actually banned the practice of his salespeople haggling over prices. And you know how that typically works at car dealerships, right? There's a hidden sort of baseline that a salesperson can't go below, but there's always room to negotiate on the price of the vehicle. Well, what that dealership owner started to see was that white men seemed to be the best at negotiating down the price, then followed by black men, then followed by white women, then followed by black women, which meant that really black women were paying the most for their cars, and in a way, they were subsidizing the cost of cars for all of the others. Now, is it illegal or wrong to negotiate for the price of vehicles? No, of course not. But should black women pay more for their cars than everyone else? Well, no, of course not. And so the owner stepped in and made a change. He said, look, no more negotiating. Now, that hurt his overall bottom line. But the trouble is that the current system that you and I have, the current system of policies and practices that create inequities, that they're not always that easy to see. It's clear that we have a broken system, but it's not always clear exactly how to fix it, how to remove the haggling. And it may take some steps of bravery that might even include us losing a little bit. But while we listen and learn about what those changes may need to be to our system, what are some of the other ways, some of the more temporary ways that you personally can start to assist those who are disadvantaged by our current system? Maybe it's helping to fund or raise awareness about a scholarship for under-resourced students of color. Maybe it's personally volunteering in an after-school program to spend time with students of color. Maybe it's volunteering for an organization like Kids Food Basket that primarily serves the needs of those who are oppressed. Friends, this is what Jesus is inviting us to be famous for. This is part of what it means to step beyond the label of Christian, to do justice, love mercy, and to walk humbly towards racial reconciliation. It's to listen and to learn and to love wherever we can, because if Jesus thought people were worth giving his life for, then we should treat them like they are, especially those who look different than us. And besides, who wouldn't want to be known as that kind of person, right? A person who seeks to listen to and love those who are different and disadvantaged in our society. I mean, that is a far more interesting life.